I kind of find myself in this streaming hustle limbo, so to speak. You get a lot of streams, but do you really know your listener? Which I think is most important for sure. I'm not interested in my creative life being dictated by streaming numbers. I'll do anything if I could have music be my main thing. That's all. I was definitely super hungry, making a ton of music.
Yo, this is Toru, host of Producer Head, and I am stoked to let you know that Ewing is back. Episodes 11 and 12 were the first conversations if you want to go back, because we went deep into creativity and process and keeping your head in the game. And today we go a very, very different direction and talk business. He shares his experience firsthand through making a living via streaming. So you've heard his music on Chill Hop, Soulection, BBC. By most metrics, it's working. And what he's honest about in this conversation is how the numbers, when they're going well, develop their own gravity. You don't decide necessarily to start chasing them. It's just easy to get a little bit more distracted to do from whatever your artistic vision is in the first place, your why you make music. It asks you to develop a stronger connection to all of that. So the real cost of all of this isn't necessarily burning out or selling out. It's a little bit more subtle. It's making creative decisions and thinking ahead. If you're making a living on playlists, you're thinking, will this work in the playlist context? Does this fit? Will this get placed? And at some point, you look up and you're not sure if you're still making music for yourself or for the algorithm that's been paying your rent. So at one point, he refers to these as golden handcuffs in the context. So I think that's exactly right. And we get into how that happened for him, what he's trying to build, and why he thinks the answer isn't leaving streaming behind. It's getting honest about what you actually want from it. So let's get into it.
Ewing, welcome back, man. Thanks for coming through.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me again, dude.
Yeah, man. So, I mean, for those of the listeners that don't already know, this is your second time through. So last time you were here, 2-part episode, I believe it's episodes 11 and 12. And we talked a lot more creative process, discipline, and like tension between like pressure to stay consistent and productive and kind of maintaining a little bit of structure and sanity around all that. And so today I was thinking it'd be cool to go a little bit of a different direction and kind of talk a little bit about your experience as you kind of described it the last time we talked, like the streaming hustle.
Right.
So I guess, yeah, do you want to like, I think first just maybe say like, what is the streaming hustle? Because like when you said that to me, I was like, this is a nice way to just like label it and maybe just explain what is the streaming hustle according to Ian.
Right. Well, according to me, when I say streaming hustle, I mean, it's not something that I set out to do premeditated. I mean, streaming hustle as far as like kind of where I found myself, and I think a lot of other producers that are, you know, in my world making this similar types of electronic-based music or instrumental music, you know, lo-fi hip-hop being probably the biggest umbrella genre that could be grouped under. But yeah, probably where a lot of other producers in that world maybe find themselves where what's the term? Golden handcuffs. Maybe it could be where one side of it is super fortunate in that over the years through good opportunity, good luck, stars aligning, working hard, putting a lot of music out, getting a lot of streaming traction to the point where it can be, you know, financially viable and you can rely on it. But then at the same time, you know, something you rely on, you're then relying on it. And so, yeah, when I say streaming hustle, I mean, been lucky enough to have streaming traction over the years. But then that's kind of how I think a lot of like the DSPs have evolved too over the past 5 to 7 years or whatever. Just that, you know, everything is revolved around playlists, and I think a lot of just how people consume music too. You know, it's you're on one of the big streaming retailers, and they have really dope playlists, so it's a great way to listen to music too. But so there comes a point where where the playlists are a big kind of like influence, or it can be a big influence then on the creative process or beat making, because then it's like now there's this for the past several years now there's been like kind of a somewhat lucrative platform, you know, and to get playlisted or to get on these playlists means then it translates to streaming royalties. And so streaming hustle meaning I don't mean it at all like this defines my artist project and why I make music. I kind of mean it like the opposite, like, the way the music economy has evolved over the recent past, I kind of find myself in this streaming hustle limbo, so to speak, where I'm very thankful for it, but at the same time, I definitely want to diversify outside of just, equating how a song does or how an album does with how many streams it gets, and diversifying outside of putting all of your care and importance on the streaming side when you can, go for other things. Maybe you can go for like more strong engagement with the listener, right? I would consider that like the opposite side of the spectrum from getting on a big streaming playlist. You get a lot of streams, but do you really know your listener? Like, I think the key after getting on a big playlist like that is then trying to hone in on the smaller percentage of listeners within that group that really love your music and want to keep seeking out whatever you have to share. So yeah, streaming hustle is just kind of like, the modern era of music consumption. And so on the creator side, I think it's an inevitable thing you have to weigh as far as how you're making your music, if it's something you want to completely ignore, or if it's something you want to be like, yeah, I would like to get on this type of playlist. What kind of sound is that? What kind of sound do you craft your sound for a playlist? Do you let it influence it a little bit? Do you take it into consideration? Or do you say like, I think that's bogus. I want to just make it purely what I'm feeling and not have that affect any decision making in your creativity, which I think is most important for sure. That's what I think where like the absolute priority is. But then there's a reality of when you're doing something for a living and relying on it financially, then you just have to take economic things into consideration. So so find myself involuntarily in like a streaming hustle type of thing, and I think I say that meaning the goal is to get to a place where I don't feel like it's a streaming hustle, because I'm not interested in my creative life being dictated by streaming numbers, Yeah,
100%, man. And so I think I want to go back a little bit if we can, because, you kind of mentioned it's something more you kind of found yourself in this place. And so I know that being a full-time musician for you was something that was a really important personal goal that you had, and I'm wondering, did you have an idea of what that looked like at the time, and were you pursuing something and then streaming kind of appeared, or were you pursuing streaming? Was it neither of those things? And how did you kind of how did that path kind of start to appear for you to move in that direction and eventually achieve what you set out to?
Yeah, it was very like natural and organic the way that it happened. I definitely like to think of myself as somebody that like money and financials traditionally had nothing to do with music for me. Even when I knew that like the dream was ultimately if I was able to make a living in music, that's amazing. But like my relationship to music and making it was like, it was the type of thing that always felt really special. And it felt like I'm one of those like, artists or creative people that thinks that just money can be just something that just muddies up that relationship so much. So I came from a mentality that really was looking to be careful with that, I think. And so I guess what I mean by that is like I definitely wasn't the type of artist or producer that was like I was looking for where money was being made in the industry and then following it. It really wasn't like that at all. I was at a point, I think, this was like in college when I'm still going to college, but realizing that like, teaching myself how to produce on Ableton and FL and, putting stuff out on SoundCloud and just being obsessed with it, but starting to get a following on SoundCloud and, getting enough feedback where it's like, this is good. I should keep, building on this. And when it got to the point that it was like, you could technically, if you worked hard enough and if the stars aligned, you could make, enough money to cover rent and bills. And at that point, I mean, that wasn't much money at all. I mean, living just in college dirt cheap, I was like, I don't need much, but like, I'll do anything if I could have music be my main thing. That's all I wanted for sure. But so there came a point for sure where I was like, how do I generate money in this? So I was eager, and I was, selling beats on SoundCloud to any rapper that was get in my DMs type of thing, looking, I was seeking out, I think, like sample pack companies at that time when I realized that was a thing. Just so I became open and eager for sure of like, how do I make money? But I would say it wasn't in like an overly desperate way. I would say like I wanted to make money in music really bad and support myself, but I also like knew there's just some stuff that I know that I'm not good at. There's stuff that I know I'm not interested in, that I wouldn't like feel connected to it. So I wasn't interested in pursuing any of those things. But with that said, then the timing did just line up that like the music that I was obsessed with at that time, still am now, and what I was making as I was like learning electronic production just happened to be a style of music that came into great algorithmic favor. It already was in some ways. I was finding great instrumental chill music like on Pandora. Like I was just devouring Pandora stations. So it was there, but for sure, I don't know, call it 2016, 17, 18 period where Spotify really was taking off and was a completely different company at that time. They had human curators. They were making really neat playlists. Long story short, all these mechanisms of monetization in the music industry were happening. And yeah, lo-fi hip hop just happened to be, this type of music that basically got packaged on streaming platforms to be background music, music to study to, music to clean to, whatever it is. And, I was grouped into that type of music in some way, shape, or form. And I was also working with labels on SoundCloud that would then become to be really like, foundational labels in that space too. So it was really like, it just did fall in my lap. But granted, I was like putting in the work for sure. Because if it fell in my lap and I didn't care about it, or if I wasn't working every day and making music, I wouldn't have any music to then put out and to, take advantage of being on a playlist curator's radar. You know what I mean? So I was definitely super hungry, making a ton of music. And then, yeah, that it was just a very fortunate turn of like the people that I was working with and collaborating with for several years. We all kind of experienced that more attention on the genre, I guess, together. And so, yeah, in that way, it really was like I didn't anticipate anything like that happening at all. I didn't see it coming. But then as it was happening, I was like, this is really cool. And it feels like probably really lucky. And I should probably just try to not squander this opportunity in any ways I can, which means I should probably keep making as much music as I can, and just take full advantage of what seemed like stars aligning as far as preparation meeting opportunity. You know what I mean? Like, I know that's like a super cliche saying about luck or whatever, but that's what it feels like. It feels like I was working really hard for sure, but also there's just things that happen that you have to be like, well, I was lucky. I was like in the right place at the right time, and I'm just thankful that I was really lucky, and I'll be thankful for it and just work really hard to not squander that opportunity. So yeah, it happened really I feel like I stumbled into it, but it was like the number one thing I ever could have wanted. You know what I mean? But I wasn't like seeking anything like that out by any means.
Yeah, like when you say, do you remember like how you were working at that point? Like how would you even describe like your level of effort, I guess? Was it something that was output focused? Were you like, I'm going to make 10 beats a day and I'm going to reach out to people? Or was it, I'm working a certain number of hours a day? Is it, I'm curious about the way that you kind of define, or the way that felt to you, to the extent you can remember.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good question. I wasn't necessarily like the 10 beats a day for 5 summers. I wasn't like not like a number thing on it necessarily, but it was just like all the time. It was just like any free moment I had, because I was still for sure like I was spread thin at that point. It was like I was a full-time student, almost full-time work, like probably working at least 30 hours, like just under full-time work, full-time student, and then like trying to teach yourself electronic production so it was like my time was so spread thin, but that's how I remember it. It was just like literally every waking moment, and it just slowly became that, like as I started to get, first of all, just fall in love with it, like as you are teaching yourself and learning how to make beats on the computer by yourself. That's like so fun. So you're getting obsessed with it. And then, yeah, just the whole challenge to reward curve, just being like, it's challenging. And then if you have this reward of like, at the time, it was like you get to share it on SoundCloud, and there's this like online world of people that make similar stuff that you're excited about, and they give you feedback. Like, that SoundCloud era was just so important and special to me. But so I don't remember any clear, like, I want to get a placement, I want to do this. It was just like, I'm on SoundCloud all the time. I'm going to message these people that I listen to all the time and just tell them that I love their stuff, and try not to ask for anything back. Just like, connect with people there. That ended up being, to this day, some of my longest lasting like friendships, like, Flamingosis or Brock Berrigan or stuff like that, was just literally like randomly hitting people that I find on SoundCloud and I love their music and I want to like just chat with them more. And put a lot of stuff out on SoundCloud, and I just wanted my stuff to sound better, and I wanted it to sound as cool as like the beats I was hearing on SoundCloud. So it was just in any waking moment that I had type thing, like any spare moment. All right, FL, laptop's open, FL, So it was that kind of vibe, I think.
Yeah, I mean, to me, what I hear is really deep, just excitement and like passion, because you're working, you have several responsibilities at this point, and you're still in a lot of ways learning and developing really early stages for yourself as a producer. And just, so I'm assuming productive, but not for the sake of it, because there was just this really deep passion and interest in making beats.
That's why I say, like, with the economic side of things, is just like, I really more so, from my vantage point now, I've been able to make a living in music for a little while. And so I've had to like take different things into account, but always I've felt like who I am at my core is like stems from, that younger version of myself that was learning how to produce, and in the SoundCloud era and everything, where just like everything was like, yeah, just metaphorically speaking, it just feels like something inside, like just like fire, just propelling me. It was just music was just always the thing that I was like the most fascinated with. I always loved instrument playing. I pursued drums because I always was obsessed with drums. It just like was the thing that I was the most fixated and obsessed with from a young age. So yeah, that's why I think since then anything around money is really like carefully kind of balanced, because whoever you are, there's not a right or wrong. Like, if you choose to use your talents and experience in music to make money, however it is, I'm not the type of person that thinks about like, oh, that's selling out and that's not. It's like, no, that is up to you and yourself and your God, like whatever you decide to do with yourself and however you decide to use your experience and your knowledge, cool, that's great. But for myself, I've felt like music is like, it's so like sacred, right? Like that relationship with it, and like the joy and passion you get from just like making stuff like is just so special, that at the end of the day, as amazing as like being able to make any money from music or support yourself making money in music is certainly not the most important. The most important is always feeling like you love making music and it's not getting ruined by pressure and a feeling of necessity, and that you're creating things that you're not actually interested in. Not letting money as an influence become too big of an influence. You know what I mean? And I've always felt very wary of that. Like, no, man, it's just so important to me that I always love it this much, and I don't want anything to ruin it. So I'm more so worried that money could tarnish it in some way. So, which I think is, the gradual progression, as I get older, more and more time in the industry, that really informs like where I'm at now. You know what I mean? And just what I think is important for myself and where I want to go in the future and what I want to work towards. So
it sounds like before, when you were getting going, SoundCloud and being present and connected to people within that community was a big part of getting your initial, like awareness around what you were doing. Can you speak to that point or whatever mechanism it was that kind of bridged the gap from like a SoundCloud world into a world where you started to be like, oh, wow, there's actually a possibility I can make money through streaming?
I remember, I think it was before the Spotify migration. I recall it being like a migration from SoundCloud to Spotify, because as amazing as SoundCloud was at that time, I think producers like myself, especially others that had far more streams than I did, there's all these insane producers at that time just like getting hundreds of thousands of millions of streams on SoundCloud, but they didn't have, they were very late to the monetization party. So that's how I recall it, just being like, I think the people that were, I don't want to say more established, but probably more established and like had more of a opportunity to maybe take their project professionally, they were gonna follow whatever platforms and companies were figuring out the monetization. And just Spotify was like was a thing then. Spotify was growing their subscriber base so fast that it was like, yeah, there's a big audience there. So, but I do remember prior to that, just SoundCloud kind of indirectly teaching it to me. Just there's this producer Taku. I don't know if you Taku. I don't know if you're familiar at all, but he was a OG SoundCloud guy, and I'm sure he's still killing it in his own right today. But was really into him, and I remember being on his SoundCloud page and just looking at the profile header. I think he had like a little over 100,000 followers at that time, and just being like, if he like, I know how much I love him and follow him, and that's how many followers he has. If he even could garner like a strong, relationship or following from 1% of that following, that's again, framing things for me living in Wisconsin in college. I don't need much money, but I'm like, I don't need like that's more than enough money to pay my rent and to pay my bills. So it was really that, just seeing like realizing the audience that is digital. You know what I mean? Because also at that time, I'm really into, I would say before producing in the box, like I was playing in bands. I definitely like wanted to play in bands, and definitely like in the town that I'm from, I think if you're musically inclined or interested, it's much more like common for people to pursue the local regional route, right? Where you're like playing in bands or you're pursuing like the local community. But for cool electronic music, like nobody was interested in that where I'm from. So that's what kind of like led myself and friends who are from where I'm from to like go to your SoundCloud, go to your Spotify, whatever, Bandcamp, etc., and see the audience around the world. It's like, oh, it's huge. There's so many people that are interested in like the type of music I'm interested in. So I think it was SoundCloud just opening my eyes to, even on SoundCloud, there's a huge audience here. And if I didn't know it at the time, but I was basically like explaining the 100 fans theory, or you could call it 1,000 fans theory, but it's like, you don't have to, you could pursue quality over quantity. And if you just had 100, relationships with listeners that like with such a strong relationship that they'll buy and support whatever you have to offer, like then you can think, then it's like that's why it's possible, I think, for anybody in today's day and age, because you can. It's not about getting the whole world to care. It's about getting the people who really want to care, and then I think trying your best to like have a sincere relationship in whatever way that is. So, and that's what I think that's the big difference between what we're talking about. Like the streaming hustle is a quantity mindset. And again, I'm not saying it's wrong, but it's like you can pursue that as a producer or as an artist to try to get on the biggest playlist, to try to get as many streams as possible, because that will equate to some bread. So great. But there's also the other side of the spectrum, which is like quality over quantity, which I think is the opposite. And I think the quality, strong engagement, relationships between listeners and creators are not as much happening on your Spotify's. You know, I'm thinking more like the Bandcamps and the Discord and the Patreon, where like you can have a bit more of a direct to supporter relationship.
How do you think about, so if it has it all, if you were to compare what it feels like to try to get on a playlist now versus what it was like back then, how has it changed, or how does it feel different?
Well, I'll just clarify too that I would never say that I've tried to get on a playlist with my main Ian Ewing project. That's like my like my portfolio project. So that's always just like stuff that is, the purpose of that is to never make stuff to get on any playlist. It's to just make whatever I think is cool at that time. So I would say more so like at some point, at least back in the day when they had more human curation, if you got playlists done on something, you definitely did know that there was a human curator that knew about you then and was keeping up to date with you. So, and then also the labels that you might work with might have, good track records with pitching and getting onto playlists. So it's kind of like that. It's like positioning yourself maybe with labels for certain releases where you're like, okay, should give myself a good chance to get on a playlist. Or you're just making music and being sure to stay consistent and put music out if you know that there are human curators that have playlisted you, and the more music you put out, they're at least going to check it out. I looked at it like from that perspective rather than like listening to the playlist, like how do I get on this playlist? It was more so like, let's make a lot of music. And yes, it feels very different. I think that's the biggest thing. At that time, let's just say like Spotify, like they had human curators for their playlists. And so it was just a completely different company, compared to who they are and how they operate now. But so that's a big one. It's like that alone means there just was less bottlenecking than there is now. Because what I'm saying, like if there's human curators and they playlist your track, they know your name, they know your artist project, they have the means of checking out your new music whenever you release it. There's way less human curating right now, like if any, you know what I mean? Like it's so sad. Like, so that's a big part, is when you are killing your human workforce, like at least for somebody like me I'm not on a major label, I'm an independent producer, like it's changed drastically. I think at the beginning they were even more incentivized to playlist an Ian Ewing or somebody like that who's independent than they are now, which is like all the major labels basically just were like, oh, lo-fi is taking off, let's kick out, like let's make sure we just chomp the whole market share of all these playlists. Like, they just end up striking deals with the companies themselves to make sure that they have a certain percentage represented in that playlist at any given time. There's a lot of distributors that have bought up a lot of labels too. It just kind of has economically gone the way of like consolidation of power, So, I mean, you can look up stats, but like there's like a small handful of labels that are representing like the actual like biggest playlists. So it's just there's way more bottlenecking now. So I'm just like saying, let's just say for Spotify, because each company is really different, but Spotify is probably the one most people have been the most reliant on, and they have a huge subscriber base, and these playlists that we're talking about have huge follower numbers. But for Spotify, I think that's really the way it's gone. Like, it was really, really dope at the beginning, like all these independent, like bedroom producers that found themselves making a type of music that was really in demand. And we had our little independent moment. And then, the big boys come in and make sure that like, they got to make sure that they don't make life that easy for like an independent artist, I think. But so there's way more bottlenecks. I think labels now are a really big bottleneck to the main playlists, which I think is kind of a bummer. Like, yeah, I just know back in the day there were way more human curators, and you had a shot of getting on the radar somebody that curated really big, cool playlists. So that's a big one. A lot of labels making sure that they have basically majority control of these playlists. And then, like, hate to bring it up, but like AI music too. Like, that's in a world of like instrumental music, especially, Spotify is just like, that's their dream come true. Like, oh, sweet, we can get free content made and we don't have to pay pesky human artists, you know what I mean? So they're egregious. Like, if you go to the biggest lo-fi beats playlist right now, I mean, it's like, I'm pretty sure you have to get down to the double digits before you hear your first human artist, like on some of the biggest lo-fi ones right now. Like, it's so many, like, whether it's AI artists or it's just like artists that are like copy pasting AI. But that's a big thing too then, because it's just like, you're just talking about like saturation even further, but in a really depressing way, because like for a company like Spotify, like I said, they're not only gonna not try to regulate that, they're probably going to secretly like fully utilize that as much as they can, which is just depressing. But all these things again inform myself of just like, where are we right now as far as like how people consume music, how these platforms are working, and like, what does that make me want to do? And, long story short, getting back to the whole streaming hustle thing, it's like, yeah, that makes me not want to be tethered to a system that I know is it's tricky, but it's also just like, it's not very fulfilling, honestly. Like, I think but it's a tool, like, you can get streams and you can make some money from that. So I want to use it as a tool, but it's just one of those things of like, I want to have multiple tent posts, but for sure not trying to, I feel like I've always been this way, but now more so than ever, where it's just like, yeah, I don't think this should be at the core of my project of like what's important, and it shouldn't drive all my big decision making, and it's not as fulfilling. It's way more fulfilling to like connect with one person like in real life over my music or something like that, you know what I mean? Rather than like, okay, so this song has this many streams, and you're like, I don't know one person who listens, you know what I mean? So as a creator too, it's there comes a point where it's like, it's not that fulfilling. So I want to keep following things that are really fulfilling in making stuff and sharing it. And it's usually really fulfilling when you're sharing it and you get some sense of like an audience that is listening to it and giving you some sort of feedback. And now more so than ever, to me, like, the streaming world seems like it's just like kind of into the void, you know what I mean? But I know that could sound like not grateful, but I mean, rest assured, like, I'm grateful every day I get up and make music, like 100%. I'm just saying, when you sit down and you are critical about like the environment around you, that's how I see it. It's like, this isn't, I'm not getting that same level of fulfillment that I used to from it. But that's all good. That's like what I think being an artist is. It's like I used to get really worried and scared if I would get that feeling of like, I'm not getting excited about this. But it's like, no, I think being a creative person or an artist is like, you're just constantly going through phases of getting really excited and getting fulfilled. And then you don't anymore. And you're like, okay, I got to look for the new thing that, I got to search for the new thing that's going to get me really excited and be really fulfilling to me. So I feel like I'm in that space now of realizing, yeah, there's not as much fulfillment there. So I got to keep searching, keep searching for the next wave of what will really excite me, I think.
Hey, quick break, because what Ian's describing right now, this tension between building streams and actually knowing your listener, that's the core of what we dig into over at the Producer Head Substack. Every episode gets a full written breakdown over there. It's not a transcript. It's more like where the conversation continues. And when you subscribe, you also get 2 free tools I made for this community. The Invisible Instruments. It's a creativity framework for in and out of the studio, as well as Sonic Stimulus Volume 1, a royalty-free sample pack. Plus, you can submit music to be featured or send in a work in progress for feedback. Free to subscribe, producerhead.substack.com. All right, let's get back into this conversation with Ian Ewing.
Yeah, I mean, I really do think it's interesting what you're touching on, because I think it's from the outside, I think producers who haven't been able to achieve a similar kind of model to date would kind of imagine like, oh, that would be amazing to just be able to make beats. And whether you're uploading them yourself or working with a label, and then a few months later, money starts coming in and that becomes a regular and predictive thing. And to your point, it is something to be grateful for. At the same time, I think it's really interesting how you point out that there is a point at which it doesn't really fulfill you and it sounds like it's because there's not really a sense of direct feedback or a connection with an audience. You're getting the numbers, but the numbers and to what we've been saying, because of a lot of the distribution is through playlists, people are subscribing to a larger umbrella more so than they are like an individual artist,
Mm-hmm.
And so I think when you're somebody who makes music, I think most of the people that I know that make music, I think that's why shows live are so appealing, is because you're getting that real exchange in real time, like, oh, like here are people responding to my music, listening to my music. It sounds like, it is basically impossible to get that through streaming. You can't have that one-to-one or even one-to-many like in the exchange, right? Everybody's listening on their own schedule and their own time. And so it does speak to, I think, that piece, which I think is interesting. And so I guess the question from there is, what do you think about, how do you think about developing or compensating for that? When you look ahead, how important is streaming to you? How important is building something that maybe helps address the other things that are of interest and fulfillment as an artist?
Yeah, I think, long story short, it's trying to transition from what we kind of mentioned, trying to transition more from the quantity mindset to the quality mindset as far as followership, I guess, or just like, your listenership. So, it's something I've like known for a while, but I've really like procrastinated on, which is just like trying to set up any means of communication that you can that is more direct to your listeners. So, whether it's email lists or, like we mentioned, Discord, Patreon, there's all these tools and platforms to use that, are basically alternatives to streaming platforms, right? Or you could at least like circumvent them, or they're good accessories to them, which is obviously what I'm looking to do. Like, I'm by no means saying this from a perspective of great gratitude, of like, it is so insane that I've been able to get any sort of streams and any sort of money in music, and that's so awesome. But I now have been lucky enough to do it for a little while and see what the other end of the situation is, and the importance of not holding that as the most important thing. So yeah, I just want to certainly keep utilizing streaming however I can. Of course, like I'm not I'm not going to be a person that takes my music off of streaming services. I mean, maybe Spotify at some point, just because they're so ridiculous. It's like, I feel like they're trolling us at like, let's see how much they'll take. Just like how terrible of a company we can be to artists. Let's just see how much they can take. But, I continue to utilize those, any traction that I have and any relationships with labels that also, can provide streaming numbers via their playlists or relationships that they have with playlists. But, just letting that visceral feeling guide me as far as like, okay, if I'm not as fulfilled, but I feel like I'm missing out on more like real knowing who listens to my music or connecting with them or being excited to share with them music, then I should probably seek out better ways to communicate with them, because you can't communicate with them really on Spotify or anything. Like even SoundCloud compared to Spotify right now, even just like, comments, like stuff like that. Like I'm just prepping for like a little show in a week or two here in New York. So I'm like back on SoundCloud, haven't been on in a while, just 'cause I love like listening to music on SoundCloud. And every time I do that, I'm just like immediately reminded of how inspiring SoundCloud is, because it's not what I've been on for the past little while of like Spotify and your other streaming retailers, where there's less of an opportunity to like communicate with people. But long story short, I mean, the number one thing honestly is just making really like number one focus on like, I want to make better music. I want to keep making better music. I want to get better at instruments that I play. I want to get my mixes better. I want to write better things, like that's always, I want the end product, and I want the content to just be really cool and just something that I love and something that I think is always progressing. Because I am a firm believer that like all these platforms aside, really good stuff will find its audience, especially now. Like there are all those platforms for people to find any sort of niche type of music or art that they love. So I'm a firm believer that like really probably your best bet is to just like focus on the music itself. So that has been a big thing right now. Like I'm just trying to be patient with myself and like, take one step back to take two steps forward with a lot of things, mixing and composing and stuff like that. And just always wanting to make my stuff better, because I know if it is better, people will find it. And then beyond that, like, I just want to put stuff out that myself as a listener, I would be interested in. And I do think there's a level to that is, I get interested when people put out cool things that you can consume outside of Spotify, whether it's like YouTube videos that are performance clips, great. If it's videos or content that is, sharing more personality side of things, or, breaking down the production of certain songs or whatever it is. I mean, the list is endless as far as your imagination goes. But I think it's the approach of trying to connect more directly to listeners, which I've procrastinated. And it's also just like, it's nerve-wracking. Like it's another leap that you take. And so it is a little bit, it's not easy to do when you're like, I've been doing this thing that works, which is like working with labels and collaborating with all these producers and doing the streaming thing. And, but if I really want to transition to, building more of like a strong engagement community, then I'm going to have to build those platforms for that to exist. So it's something I know. It's something that I know I believe about the future of music and stuff. It's going to be up to me if like I have the bandwidth, or if I choose to, to build that, you know what I mean? But that's what I think as far as what would be important moving forward. That's what would be important, is just trying to diversify away from the quantity mindset as best as I can, and trying to pursue the quality mindset with listeners as best as I can. So we'll see. I'll check back later if I ever do it.
Round 3, man. That's what it'll be about. So right. I'm curious, like, what do you, maybe, because you kind of described them earlier as TED poles. And so I'm curious about how you, because it also sounds like you're sort of in the early stages of thinking about how you're going to make this pivot for yourself. And so what do you see? Are there artists that you look to that you think are doing a good job of this? Are there specific things that are of interest to you that feel like make sense given the type of artist that you are? So on.
Yeah. I mean, too many artists to list that I feel like do it really well. And I think there is like a level to being really good, like at self-promotion, which ironically I have never been good at. Like that's why I think the streaming hustle, quote unquote, is a hard thing to not resist as it was happening, because yeah, like I'm like, you know, I'm a studio body for sure, like many creative people. And so if I can spend most of my time like making tunes and then finding a home for it, and then they can perform and be playlisted and get on playlists to a point where that can generate income for myself so that I can keep doing that. Of course, I'm going to do that rather than like, you know, I think it's just a lot more like work to seek out strong engagement, direct to listener relationships, and, you know, like just the self-promotion, whether it's on social media or whatever else. Like I just always have had a hard time doing that. Like I love my stuff. I'm proud of it. I'm super proud of it. But like I hate like recording myself or things like that. But you know, there are things that I don't hate. You know, like I do record myself playing drums or doing, you know, beat playthroughs, or like I'm down to record myself if it's talking about something like conceptually that really, excites me or something like that. So, yeah, it's thinking about and following the stuff that feels the most sincere to me. I don't think I'm ever going to be the really good type of person, because the people who are really good at it are just like, I feel like they can just naturally like, you know, share on social media, share themselves. They can communicate really like freely and efficiently, where I'm like, that's not as much my bag. So, I think I'm just trying to acknowledge where I know my natural shortcomings are, but yeah, to take notes from those artists that I think are doing that well, you know, and it's basically like, that are gathering their little community and what's the word I'm thinking of? Just kind of, building and maintaining a thriving little community that you're actively like checking on and communicating with, and like you are a part of their lives beyond even just releasing music, you know? But yeah, I think that's a huge part of it, is like, I think there's some things that I know that how I might want to continue this transition. There's some stuff that I'm like, I don't know. I'm still in this period of like trying to discover, but that's a huge one. It is being sure to take notes from artists that I'm like, yeah, like that's it. That's what you do. So yeah, I think really important for me to keep taking notes from people. But yeah, at the end of the day, it just comes down to like putting in the actual work of like, all right, got to fire up this Discord, got to start sharing this, you know, like got to like put in the actual work of setting up those means of communication. But yeah, I mean, there's so many people who do it incredibly. So I'll just be doing my best to take notes and do whatever I can see myself doing as well.
Well, what does your future community look like to you? Like, what is the thing that you see?
I mean, that's a good question. I just want to continue. Like, I feel I've been fortunate enough to turn a lot of online relationships over the past few years to in-person relationships. that's always like the best. It never gets old, and it's amazing. And a lot of those relationships have, in some way, shape, or form, led to new music being made, whether it's like collaborating on making some beats, or it's like, I play like drums with like, different producers and artists and stuff like that. So that's really huge. Like you said with the live show, there's just like an undeniable feeling with a live show because it's tangible and, you're physically, getting real-time feedback from the creator and from the listener. And yeah, playing instruments with people, with a band, playing shows to that capacity is really, really fun. And it's really, really fulfilling. So that for sure is an ingredient of the hopeful long transition, is like, drumming has always been this thing that can both be incorporated in my producer world music, but also can kind of be this thing that's like a foot outside of it. Like I could always, seek to just play the drummer role for anybody. And it's like, I don't have to think from the producer mindset. I can think more from like pure role player, just, how can I be the best drummer and support whatever this project is? So like, that's super exciting to me. And I think anything, I think I'm really just open to opportunities like that might be a little bit like outside of what I've already been doing, just to switch it up and just to be a little more inspiring, you know what I mean? But I hope my community continues to be all the people I'm able to connect with online first, and then I hope that I can continue to translate as many of those to the IRL world as best I can, whether it's other creators or listeners. Like that's the name of the game for sure. But I think that's one of the things I'm most thankful for of my time making music thus far, is like all the people you meet online and then being able to meet them in person, and I always end up loving them. And you just kind of have this like special music-based connection, you know what I mean? So I hope to keep sharing as much music online as I can, if not for any other reason than to just keep like making online friends that you both are interested in the same kind of music. And then it could be like, hey, I'm traveling and I'm in your town. Let's link up, like it makes life so fun. It makes life so cool. So I hope it continues to be that. Like, I just want to keep being an active member of the producer community and the, musical community, and just, keep making friends with the countless people that there are out there. So, that's what I hope it looks like. But I would love to also keep, building communities as far as like playing drums for whoever will have me, really.
Yeah. When you think about producers now and coming into the space, or like how important do you think, or how, like if you were starting out now, how much would you prioritize streaming versus trying to build a community of some kind outside of streaming?
I would for sure say that you should look to both, look to pursue both for sure. I would say, like anything else, like the more instant gratification one probably seems easier and more enticing to go for in the short term, being streaming, that being the more instant gratification one. So I would fully understand like the desire to be like, how do I like get streams, or how could I like try to submit to this playlist and get on this playlist? But everything that I'm talking about is kind of giving much more importance towards community building more so. So I would, I know it would be almost not helpful to be like, don't think about streaming at all. I think square away your relationship with it first, or like what your goals are. Like if you want to make money in music and you want to do it as efficiently as possible, then you want to do the streaming hustle. So do that. Like, and I'm not here to judge anybody. Like, I get to choose how I do my own thing. So if numbers are what is important to you and you want to make streaming money, then you should focus on streaming. If your focus is more so longevity and connecting with people and like something a little more fulfilling, and if you have patience and your time horizon is long, like you're like, I'm going to do this for years and years and nothing's going to make me quit. And I'm going to be patient with it. And this is just always what I'm going to do. Then yeah, totally focus on the community building. And I think the good part is it's like, it's not one or the other, anywhere, like you can pick anywhere in the spectrum, right? Where you can be like, well, I really want to generate some money and I really do want to like get some streams. Then you do have to pay attention to it. But what you can balance that with, like, I also really would love to, plant seeds that are longer term. And seed planting would be connecting with people, and connecting with people that are going to be telling their friends, if they love your music, they're going to be telling their friends, they're going to be telling their family, they're going to be listening to you without having an ad come by their algorithm to tell you to go listen to somebody. So I mean, I think you have to pay attention to it. You have to acknowledge streaming in some way, shape, or form. It's like it's easily the biggest way that most people listen to music. So it would be silly to not look at it and think about what is right for you. But I would say that's the biggest part, is taking like a good amount of time to just figure out like what is right for you, and just be really honest with yourself and don't think that anything is right or wrong. But don't rush the decision, and just try to be really clear about like what your goals in music are. And that should make the decision like really clear actually after that. Like if you want to do it forever and you want to meet people, try to build community. If you want to make money, if you want to have it be really efficient, if you want to not leave your house ever, focus on streaming.
Yeah, I think you bring up an interesting point too, which maybe applies, to music as a career overall in the various facets. Like, in your case, as a drummer, as a producer, mix engineer, performer, all of these different things. How do you experience and deal with this kind of trade-off of instant gratification versus long-term kind of improvement, or thinking about what your long game is versus the short game?
Yeah, it's tricky. It's like, I would say that's like the trickiest thing. It's just like a challenging thing. I think it's one of the main things right now in this period of my life that is, just uncomfortable at times. And, but I'm just trying to use that as, an indicator that usually if there's some form of discomfort, it's like probably in your best interest to try to explore that a little bit and to see what's going on there. So like that's just like it is tricky, like the trade-off between those two. And I think, like, I know I'm guilty of this, but if you end up purposefully or accidentally giving too much weight to say to the streaming, then what you're doing is basically like equating your worth or your value, or the worth and value of your music, to like however it happens to stream or not stream, which is like brutal. Like if you're not keeping that in check, that literally, earlier I'm mentioning about wanting to protect my relationship with music. I mean, that's what I'm talking about. You find yourself at a place where you're subconsciously judging your own music and capability as a creative person with like how well it's streaming or how not well it's streaming. That could make you hate music after a little while, like for sure. So that's really apparent to me, that it's just like I want to reclaim my relationship with streaming, while also being incredibly thankful for it. You know what I mean? So I don't really have a great answer other than just like it's tricky, and I'm just doing my best currently to like keep navigating it. But I would say it's helpful to always like to constantly remind myself of the of just the perspective part of it. Like you said, if I told any random person who likes music or makes music, like the way you're able to generate money if you get on a playlist or something, they'd be like, that's all I ever want. That's like the most important thing. And it is like very fortunate. So I think as challenging as it is, it's very easy to be like, but it also is incredibly beneficial to me. And I've been incredibly lucky to have this thing, even though this thing right now feels like it's almost in a way like holding me back creatively. You know what I mean? So, yeah, it's just like the duality of it. It's like, I don't think it's an inherently bad thing at all. It's just the way that it's been manifesting in my creative life is it's just coming to a head with myself and my own emotions and values and where I want to go in the future. So yeah, it's carrying both those things. It's like it's tricky. It's a little bit frustrating. I'm trying my best to navigate through it, but at the same time, I always circle back to like, I'm so lucky to have this though. Like I'm to any level of getting any streaming numbers or anything like that. Like I'm just incredibly grateful for it. So I can put up with the discomfort and the uncertainty and all that because I've been incredibly fortunate to just benefit from it in the slightest. So yeah.
In what ways is it limiting? You mentioned.
Well, I mean, I think even without you realizing, you can find yourself like, if you're inundated with a producer project that generates money via streaming royalties, then even if you're doing your best to like not have money affect music, you're thinking about playlists, playlisting all the time. You're privy to what labels make up what percentage of certain playlists. You're privy to how the playlists are changing in their sound and stuff like that. And again, I don't think I've ever been guilty of this, but I mean, it can subconsciously for sure affect what you think you should make, what you think you want to make. You know, if it's like, if you're following what is going to be financially viable, that might not always agree with what is actually most creatively fulfilling for you. And so basically that, it's like, man, I think it's just so important to have the priority be your creative integrity and just making like the most ambitious stuff ever that for myself, like ambitious and exciting, like it excites me in some way. And yeah, a lot of times that's not playlist music. It's exactly the opposite. Like playlist music, like most of the time has to like fit into this like cookie cutter mold. Therefore, usually like ambitious music in whatever the genre, it's like, well, that by definition can't go on this big playlist because it needs to be this kind of like McDonald's French fry. Here you go. You know what you're getting. So it can be limiting in that way. It just, if you're like, again, even subconsciously, not even realizing it, but maybe you are very privy to how this music gets consumed. You know, streaming is how music gets consumed. So it's hard not to be privy to, well, where is somebody going to hear this? Are they going to hear this on a playlist? What environment? What's the context of how people are going to hear this? You know? And so that can suck. Like that can be super lame if you're not acknowledging it and knowing that that's happening. So, I mean, it can be limiting in that way. And yeah, it can just be limiting if you are telling yourself the only viable thing to do is to like get these streams right now. You know what I mean? Of course that can be limiting because then you're just like literally beholden to the algorithms and to the streaming world. So, yeah, when you just let those variables and those influences become too strong, it can be creatively limiting for sure. Again, I feel like, sorry, I just want to just reiterate that like, I feel like I have been good with myself about not letting playlists take up that much of my mental headspace. I just mean, I know these things seep in subconsciously and there can be a lot of limits you put on yourself creatively that you're not even like privy to. And I think that can happen easily in today's day and age, no matter what type of creator you are, when you know that beyond your control, 99.9% of the people that might listen to your thing, it's going to be via Spotify or Apple or something like that. So it's just that type of thing. I think it's hard to not acknowledge, and then it's easy for that to seep in and maybe influence you when you don't even realize that it's influencing you.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting point, man. And I really do appreciate you being, really candid about it and thinking about it kind of openly. And I want to say that I feel like in a lot of what we've been talking about for like the past hour or so now is there are a lot of things in streaming that maybe this is strong, maybe you agree or don't agree with this, but I would say in a sense, it is kind of in a certain way to like maybe at the very least make it a little bit less visual and upfront the individual artistic identity of the people who have music on Spotify, if you're not somebody who is supported by a larger label. And I think I would say that because of the way that you're describing some of the mechanics of the way that these playlists work, right? If there is an expectation that you're going to make music that fits in a way that won't make somebody stop what they're doing, so they won't be curious enough to maybe check who made this song, or what is this, that what you're trying to do is kind of just lull people into a time spent on the platform as opposed to an engagement with music. And as we all know too, there, to your points in the comparisons, excuse me, with SoundCloud, there's not really a way to interact directly with the song, let alone the artist, right? The most deep thing you can do is like save it or add it to a playlist, right? Which, for all the people here listening, if you're listening to music on Spotify, it is the least you can do for an artist that's on there. So I guess, and to your point about the consolidation piece, right? It's not, I would say, that dissimilar to if you compare it to like a Google or if you compare it to an Amazon, where you become the platform of consumption as a whole, you have all of the data about what's being consumed, and therefore you could insert your products ahead of what's working. So Amazon Basics or Google search results and consolidating information so that nobody even goes into a web page or a website. And so this is essentially what's happening in Spotify and in streaming right now, right? Where it's like, it's keeping you in this place, and because they know what works, and you're not really paying attention, it becomes easier to slide other things in there. And so I think, and I feel like those are just like, whether you think those are good or bad, that it's like kind of a personal choice. I think it does very much so for artists like ourselves to make a way financially in those platforms. That said, I'm curious about somebody who has like kind of been in the streaming for a long time. Is there something that you see as advantageous from having been on there to make the bridge from streaming to community?
Yeah. I mean, that's a really interesting point you made. I never thought of that comparison to like the Google consolidating like search results so that you're not even going to the web page. That's really interesting. I mean, right. That's exactly what like Spotify's bottom line incentive is, right? It's like, okay, have people on the platform as much as possible. So, right, that makes playlists be like, okay, let's monitor the behavior so that there's as little skips as possible and basically as little like activity as possible, which is just so crazy. But I mean, it's just the obvious advantageous one is that like the shotgun spray of like you're just getting out to a big audience, right? And so I just generally looked at it like, okay, then you probably want to be online and active and visible in a way where it's really easy for those people to connect with you in some other way, which historically has like seemed to work out, pretty well, just like of the amount of people that might approach you and say, I found you on Spotify, I found you on whatever. But that's probably the biggest thing, right? Is just because you can't specifically like usher in the people are, I mean, I guess maybe through following certain analytics you could, but like, strong engagement listeners who are saving your tracks and that are like in your super listeners or whatever it is, like, there's not like a direct way to seek them out, communicate with them and be like, come on over here type of thing. But I've just looked at it like, okay, if I'm fortunate enough to get on this playlist with hundreds of thousands of listeners, you kind of are like guaranteed there'll be a big chunk of people that save that. There'll be some chunk of people that are like searching for you somehow. So I just put my efforts in, historically just into like, okay, I'm going to have, all the things I should have. I'm going to have websites set up, search engine optimized as best as I can, whatever, have all of my pages really easy to find, and whatever other ways that I want them to connect with me, it should be as easy as them. Like you want to take away the obstacles as much as you can, which there are better ways to do it for sure. I'm just saying, historically, that's what I figured in the meantime is the best thing to do. Just be like, make yourself visible. Because if somebody's on Spotify and they're like going over to Spotify and looking who the artist is, that they're already doing way more work than most playlist listeners probably. So, they'll probably put in a minimal effort to find you. So you should just make it like as seamless or as easy for people to find you or to find places where they can buy your stuff, or if you have physical merch of any kind or whatever that is. So I've just kind of more generally looked at it like any big playlist you can get, let's just make sure we have the avenues to other platforms that are really clear and easy to get to.
So I have to ask you, are there any updates since we last talked to your hummus recipe?
Oh, dude, no, not updates. No, I always do the tried and true 2 different recipes of roasted garlic and roasted red pepper. The roasted garlic one is just the classic and it's better. But I honestly haven't been making as much homemade because I don't know where my food processor is, and you need that. You need that for hummus. So, dude, I've been going with some store-bought, which some store-bought is off the list, like literally will not buy it, but there's a lot of really good store-bought. So, just been trying out the different store-boughts recently, and keeping track of that. But I gotta find my food processor, dude. I've been out the scratch made game for too long now.
Yeah, wow. And Sophia, for anybody who didn't, go back to the previous episodes with Ian, because he did drop his very personal and delicious recipe for hummus.
And it's simple.
Yeah, but you definitely need the gear.
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, right on, man. Is there anything else that you're working on that's like upcoming that you want to tell people about?
Always working on a ton of music for sure. So yeah, I have a lot of collaboration with people in the, down tempo and lo-fi hip hop world for sure. I've been just working on a lot of new music, have some stuff that, for sure will just be like my solo Ian Ewing project, releases. Starting to work on, what could hopefully be like more of like a side project thing. And I only mention just because it does tie into everything we've talked about in this conversation of like moving forward and following things that align with what I'm really fulfilled with. And side projects are great for that, man. If anybody's out there that has a singular artist project, try just setting up a side alias of a different style or genre, and you will thank me later. It's so like creatively liberating. It's really fun. I have a couple of them now at the encouragement of my friend, and it was like the best decision ever. So I make a lot of ambient music under a different alias. I make a lot of lo-fi house with another guy, another different side project. But there's just some stuff that I'm working on that's like it sounds like not exactly in the Ian Ewing realm in a cool way that I'm interested in. It definitely sounds like more like indie leaning and like indie bedroom pop type thing, but try to like bridge that with like what I like to think are my production signatures type of thing, so that's been fun. But thinking about, I would love to continue to maybe work with a vocalist and turn that into a side project. But yeah, lots of Ian Ewing stuff, lots of random unreleased stuff. And then I am playing a show. I don't know when this will come out, but I'm playing a show on April 11th of the year 2026 in New York City. I think the venue is Chocolate Factory. So I don't know if this will be out by then. If it's not, y'all missed it. If it is, come through New York City.
We'll try to get this out for you by then. And that's awesome, man. Where is that venue? I've never been there.
I have not a clue. Yeah, I have no idea. I've definitely never been there, but it's like a 2-night thing with a bunch of cool artists.
Are you playing like as part of a band or is it a solo show?
No, just a solo set. Yeah, this is like a one-off show for me. So yeah, bandwidth. Speaking of bandwidth, but bandwidth-wise, for like a one-off, it just is like it's so. I mean, it's a ton of work put in a for a beat set or a DJ set, you know. But yeah, to do anything with instruments or to call up another dude to like cover synth or guitar for me is just like it's a ton of work for a one-off, and I have an 8-month-old child, so it's just like my life is just. I don't got the time for that at the moment, unfortunately. But yeah.
Yeah. What's the format of your set gonna be?
It's basically like, you know, beat set type feel, DJ set type feel. But you know, I've played DJ sets like on like a, you know, tractor with a little effects module thing that I have, which is fun. But I built a live set years ago that was based off Ableton, and that way I could have. Like I had a Juno DS as like so I could play an instrument. I also did a version of that rather than having a synth, I had a drum kit, which that was the funnest version of that. But so it's like MIDI station with, you know, launch pad, just a general like MIDI controller with a bunch of knobs and buttons that I have just routed to like all sorts of effects. And then just my machine micro. So amongst that, you know, via building it out, a good amount of prep to build it out, just a lot of fun to like, it's basically DJ style, but I mean, you can use as many decks technically as you want if you're using Ableton and you're using like a launch pad. So yeah, you know, just like most like 95% my tunes, but like kind of like I can play the tunes out a little bit more because I have like a lot of it's my music, and then so I can have some of the elements isolated on clips, and then I can have some elements isolated on the machine, so I could play drums or I could, you know, trigger samples. But it's a nice medium, you know, where it's like it's good like good for a live room where it can be DJ, you know, based. You got a good vibe going, but like. I can play things. You can perform a little bit more than I felt with just having like a tractor or like CDJs or something like that. So yeah, that's the basic vibe. Just basically like beat set type of thing.
Yeah, it sounds really cool, man. Yeah, so April 11th at the Chocolate Room. Is that what it's called?
Chocolate Factory, I believe.
Chocolate Factory.
Yes.
So check this man out. And in the spirit of everything we've been saying, where is the place that you want to send people to check you out now?
Well, we shouldn't say Spotify. I mean, yeah, no, I mean, anywhere where you like to listen to music, but my website is ianewingmusic.com. So that's just, you know, contact information. If I'm ever playing shows, that info is there. I have links to, you know, my SoundCloud is embedded there, so you could just listen straight from that website if you wanted. But yeah, any latest release will always be linked from my website. Any links that you would want to get to are at my website, contact info. So that's probably the best one. Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, check out your Instagram too. I love those when you do those drum beat videos, man. I love watching those. Those are great.
Thank you. Yeah, I've been off the Instagram game for a little while, but yeah, I was gonna get back and record some more breaks because those are a lot of fun to make.
Yeah, man, those are super cool. So with that, man, let me just ask you some of these more fun questions and wind it down. So what's your most used piece of hardware right now?
Probably Prophet Rev 2 right over here.
Boom.
Synth. And I run it through. Yeah. I run it through a couple just envelope filter pedal and Grand Canyon delay. So that alone, I mean, yeah, I've been using that a lot. You can just roll up like with your coffee and just start making ambient drones for hours. So fun.
Man, that's cool. I never thought about running a pedal between that. That could be fun.
Oh, it's so fun. Yeah.
Yeah. Glad I asked. Best free plugin or tool you'd recommend to other producers?
I'm really bad at keeping track of which ones are free or not, but I'm almost positive that Springs is a free plugin. Let me remind myself who it's by. I think Cable Guys. One sec. Gotta let the people actually know what's free. Spring. Yeah, so it's a Spring Reverb. It's so sick. And I couldn't believe it was free. Let me just double check that this is Cable Guys. Oh my God, my internet is freaking out. Okay, yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Cable Guys though. Spring Reverb plugin, so sick.
Count it. One production technique that you overuse.
Side chaining to the kick. I overuse that so much, but it's good to know if you overuse something, because then I've been consciously trying to not overuse it, and it's been really helpful, because then I'm like, oh, I sidechain to the kick to cover up problems. I should probably just fix the problems first and not try to fix it with just ducking the hell out of everything with the kick. So time and place. There's a time and place where that sounds awesome. But yeah, I've been reaching for the sidechain too much in my life, and I'm trying to be a better man.
Interesting. What did you realize that you were saving yourself from or covering up with sidechaining?
I mean, there is a specific sound to that, right? And I legitimately have always loved that ducking sound. But then I think, ended up using it more heavy-handedly, basically just to like be lazy with my low end, you know? Like you can have your kick and your chords and your bass really agree EQ and frequency wise, and that's probably the more like technical way to have like a kick that just has the right room for it. You know, you made the right room for the kick, and it's sitting there, but you're not taking anything away, which technically you're doing when you sidechain, right? So yeah, I think it was just literally being like, I could take time to actually properly mix down these relationships of these low end ingredients, or I could just have the kick be the boss and just be like, get out of my way. You know what I mean? So I think it's just like, yeah, just a thing that, you know, when you're making a beat too, though, I don't want things to be halted by like mixing things. So I think that's why I just end up being like, yeah, okay, I'll mix that down later, but let's just sidechain for now, because I want to just keep things moving. You know what I mean? But but being aware of it, then I've been trying to do that less, and that has been a beneficial thing for me to not sidechain as.
That's what's up, man. That's a cool little unexpected glimpse into your process there. Something in your studio you've been meaning to organize or fix for months?
There's a few things. I mean, organize more so always is like my drum miking. I'm just looking around and seeing everything that I need to fix. Yeah, drum miking, I've been procrastinating a bit on doing some more ambitious and cooler miking. I have this warm audio compressor that has been busted up ever since I moved. I put it in. It's all like the move must have messed it up, and I'm just like, but now it's bolted into the rack. You know, like okay, I'll figure that out later. And just my little side table over here is like it's just not utilized real estate, which I don't like having not utilized real estate. It's got pieces sitting on there, but it should be running audio to my main desk, and it's not. So we'll stop there with those three, because there's definitely more.
3 artists that changed how you think about music.
Oh man, that's a toughie. Okay, I'll just try to go with first impressions. Jimi Hendrix, probably. Like I'm trying to think early on. I know in one of our conversations, I know I was telling you about classic rock was like when I was younger and getting into drums. That was just what I was obsessed with. So Jimi Hendrix was crazy because Mitch Mitchell was the drummer. He was like a jazz drummer in a rock band, which is very interesting to hear, especially before I understood what any of that meant. It was like I loved classic rock, but there was such a different sound with Jimi Hendrix because Mitch Mitchell was not a rock drummer basically. But then of course there's Jimi Hendrix, who's just like innovative in so many ways. So yeah, and definitely at that point in time, that was changing my life 100%. I'd say Pete Rock was the instrumental hip hop changer for sure. He came before Flying Lotus for me. He came before Dilla for me, actually, I believe. So I always got to give him the props as far as my own journeys. So yeah, Pete Rock, and then I'll say Galimatias just because that was I think I've found him on SoundCloud too back in probably around his like Urban Flora days, and I think that was just so life-changing because it was like I was in the SoundCloud world that time and making really like boom bappy type of hip hop and like sampled stuff, but with like more and more attention to the sonic detail. And then coming across him where it was like, this music is related to what I make, but so different and so much better and like so much more well produced. So yeah, he changed things for me for sure. I'm happy with that list. Yeah, those three: Jimi Hendrix, Pete Rock, and Galimatias.
Yeah, that's a really cool spread in terms of time and genre. Who's an underrated producer more people should know about?
Oh man, dude, I suck with these questions that are off the dome because I'm gonna think about it right after like we hop off the phone. Just give me a second because I'm gonna get there because I really want to have a proper answer.
No rush, man.
I need to look through my.
That's cool. We're gonna pull the Jeopardy music up while you do this.
Yeah. I mean, even calling somebody underrated, it's like I'm not saying you're underrated, but like I don't know, the fact that I guess everybody doesn't know about you, but I'll say Styles Davis. I've been listening to a lot of him. Not sure if you're familiar, but yeah, everyone just go look him up. He's just sick. He's I think he's from the UK. Really sick producer. He has a lot of all sorts of stuff out there. Go check out his SoundCloud, you guys. That's what I'm trying to say is, he's got vocal featured stuff. He's got like a lot of different flips and remixes, but just something as of late, literally like before we hopped on, I've been just listening to a lot of his stuff. Perfect balance between like tasteful composition of stuff, but with like just perfectly mixed and punchy drums. Yeah, just like really sexy remixes and flips and stuff like that. And the production is just like absolutely A+. So, but his SoundCloud is so fun because it's all these like really dope remixes and stuff. So everybody go take a listen through Styles Davis's SoundCloud.
And then is there a book, movie, TV show, something like that that's really stuck with you that you like to always tell people about?
Yeah, okay, so I'll do movie and books. Movie, Truman Show, just because I always was obsessed with Truman Show. But Truman Show continued to always have really deep meaning to me. Like even now, I really do think like that concept was, I don't know if necessarily ahead of its time, but just so much about it is so like metaphorical and beautiful. But I remember when I watched it growing up, I got really obsessed with it. And I just put my finger on it recently that I think that's something that really like struck me with that movie was the score it has creates a really interesting mood with what you're seeing visually. And I think that's part of it. But Truman Show is sick, and just all the metaphors in Truman Show just totally hold up, and it's amazing. But then books, I would say anything from Michael Pollan. He used to write a lot on nutrition and food systems. I went to school for nutritional sciences, so I used to be a big nerd on it. But it's really it's not sciencey. He's very he got popular by writing books that are distilling a lot of nutritional information into really interesting, simple concepts. But then he switched it up recently and he started writing about hallucinogenics, which is equally as interesting. Really, really interesting books on the history of hallucinogenics and currently where they're at as far as clinical research and using them for things like addiction therapy, depression therapy, all these different things. So anything he writes is very cool. But yeah, Michael Pollan on the books, Truman Show on the movie.
Yeah, that's cool. I actually have I think it's called Omnivore's Dilemma, but I haven't read it yet.
Yeah, classic. Oh yeah, dude, that's a banger.
Yeah. Yeah, you might have just helped me bump that up in the queue. Maybe I'll move that up.
It's worth it.
Yeah. But yeah, and I know I haven't read How to Change Your Mind either, but I think they even made that into a Netflix series or show or something.
They did. And it's it doesn't slap the same way as the book, honestly. So just book it.
Yeah, I believe you. What's something about the music industry that would surprise outsiders?
I don't know if it surprises outsiders. Maybe it's common knowledge, but you work on something and you're getting paid in 2 years for it. That's one thing that kind of surprised me, I guess. But that is one thing that comes to mind. And I would say that the royalty apparatus, there's so many different types of royalties that I'm still learning about. I'm still becoming privy to new royalties I didn't know existed, and I still have a hard time understanding royalties, and that has been a big way in which I've been able to live. So I think that's ridiculous that it's so the publishing world, the royalty world is so not clear and really unorganized. That's I think would be very crazy to any outsider. Is there's a bucket basically of millions and millions of dollars of unpaid royalties that just doesn't get paid out to people if they don't register their stuff. I think that's crazy too. But yeah, the world of royalties and publishing is laughably unclear and hard to navigate. I think that would be surprising maybe.
Best piece of unsolicited advice that you ever ignored and shouldn't have?
Oh, that's a good one. I feel like I usually don't ignore advice. I usually take it to heart. Yeah, I really don't know. I can't think of anything that I've straight ignored.
Pretty receptive to advice.
Yeah, no, I feel like I take every single bit of advice that's ever been given to me. No, I mean, maybe I feel like I started investing early, but maybe it's never too early. So any advice I was getting about investing, or I have been told certain stocks to invest in that I did not, and they performed unbelievably well. So I'll go with that.
If you could change one thing about the internet, what would it be?
I think it's perfect the way it is. No, I was just kidding. It's totally not. What I change about the internet, I maybe just an actual non-hackable limit that everybody actually hit. If everybody actually had 60 minutes of the internet a day, you would have to only do productive shit. And all this other stuff that we get ourselves into on the internet is probably literally just this is too much time. You got too much time on your hands. If we could just all be subject to a 60-minute internet limit, I'm pretty sure the world would be a better place. I would be pissed about it just like everyone else, but we would be better off for it.
Very interesting answer. Very interesting answer. Ian Ewing, thank you so much, man. Is there anything else that you would like to say to the people listening before we get out of here?
No, just I love you. Hope everyone is doing well in today's world, and thank you for having me. Love chatting with you every time, and yeah, check out my music if you're at all interested, and if not, no worries. Yeah, hopefully I can chat with you again sometime in the future, and I've followed through on some of the goals I laid out that I have not been following through on.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Listen back when you need a reminder, you know?
There we go.
But thanks so much, man. Yeah, man. But thanks so much for coming through and being really, candid and open about, your experience in streaming and how it connects to your just overall kind of arc as an artist and where you're going next. It's been really cool to hear.
Of course, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, everybody, that concludes another episode of Producer Head. This has been Toru, and in a way, so are you. For Ian Ewing, we will catch you next time. Peace.
Ian described what SoundCloud felt like in its prime, leaving comments, DMing producers that he loved just to say that he was digging the music. He wasn't seeking anything, asking for anything. He was just trying to connect. And some of those turned out to be relationships and friendships that last till now. And that world is a little, I don't know, it seems foreign and almost unrecognizable compared to how we listen to music now. You get playlisted, someone plays your track while they're cleaning their apartment, and they never think about you or even know that you made the song. It's like the stream happened, but it's almost anonymous. There's no connection. And that's the thing about the 1,000 fan theory that I think gets undersold. It's not really a growth strategy. It's a different definition altogether of what you're even making music for. Ian's even still figuring that out, as he talks about in this conversation, how to make this transition from the streaming to a more direct community. And I think that honesty, that is what makes this one worth sitting with, So thanks for being here. The full write-up is on Substack. Link in the show notes. Share this episode with another producer if it hit for you. I'm Toru. Peace.